Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L coming in with a very late night Hero Academia chapter 240 impressions / review. I'm coming in, I just finished reading the chapter on my first read through, and it's very late, and we all know what happens when it's super late and I just finished reading. That means hot takes. There's going to be a lot of hot takes, and yeah, I might also miss a few details. So if I do miss something, feel free to let me know in the comments. It's just because I finished this. The reason I can't take my time is because I'm not sure if I'll actually be able to make anything tomorrow, because my schedule is kind of weird tomorrow. Anyway, not the point. Let's just jump into this chapter because this was exciting. So in broad strokes, what I want to say first, I got excitement and I got concerns. And as I found out with the previous chapter, like I've seen a lot of you came out of the arc feeling you felt a little bit lackluster, or you felt that the arc was lackluster, and that's totally fair. That's totally fair, without a doubt. But let's just start talking about this chapter. So the first big thing is that the way that the chapter opens up, it opened up with, and we're gonna do the full chapter walkthrough, but the chapter opened up with a nice manipulation of media, and that was really cool. That was pretty much what I wanted from these villains. I wanted this kind of fight. I wanted to be in a really nasty situation, and that's what they did in this chapter. I will always hold that the moment that the Liberation Army, because their new name is in my head now, the moment the Liberation Army tried to bring Shigaraki into a brawl, they were fated to lose. It was just the reality of the situation. But here you had a much more interesting approach with them exerting their power and their influence. This is how a outfit of, well, high-end villains should be able to operate. They don't have to get involved directly. They can win multiple battles on multiple fronts just by exerting the wealth that they've already acquired. So that was really great. That first page was really great. But we do have a little bit of a problem as we continue into the chapter. And it's effectively summed up with Hawks in this. I'm also using Jimini's box as a reference point for anyone that wants to follow along. It's right around page 12. And Hawks' words are, Shigaraki Tomura has now come to obtain power which rivals the heroes, if not more. Right. This organization that we have here in front of Shigaraki, this is a severe problem. This is a gigantic problem, because now, like Hawks says it, the man acquired it overnight. Like just overnight, this giant power just amassed under Shigaraki. How will the rest of Hero Academia shape out after this? Shigaraki is now unlimited. He doesn't have constraints based on resources. He has a lot of power. The man could lead a charge into UA and make it look like it wasn't him that was involved with the amount of media manipulation he has right now. Unless the heroes get really good at the PR game, which honestly they're not. They're not going to win the PR game. They're never going to win the PR game unless you have a giant majority of civilians watching a big fight. They're not going to win the PR game. What I'm saying here is that because of the influence that Shigaraki now exert on the world, Hero Academia has hastened things to a really high degree. Will the heroes be allowed to move? Will the heroes be allowed to actually do things? That's the big issue that I'm also going to kind of jump into a little bit more when we have the relevant pages. But what I'm pretty much saying is, it's like we have a giant boulder, and the boulder is about to be pushed off a cliff. And once that thing starts rolling, it's going to snowball out of control. Yeah. Imagine like a little snowball, and it's about to go off a cliff, and it's about to snowball out of control. Things have been heightened to a high degree here. Shigaraki has too much power under his hands right now. And heck, I think it's possible that Shigaraki might acquire a few more quirks. Because if the doctor is dealing with Nomus, it's possible that he has somehow quirks ready to go. Like quirks ready to be injected into people. Maybe he doesn't have to go that way. Maybe he has some other kind of mutation that he can trigger in Shigaraki without actually using someone else's quirk. But it's very likely that Shigaraki is going to acquire extra quirks. Because that is the name of the game for Hero Academia Power Escalation. So now we're in a situation where we have escalated in power and we have escalated in influence. And the only thing I think that is going to allow the heroes, and by heroes I mean Izuku's group, the only thing that's going to allow Izuku's group any room to breathe in this situation is Shigaraki's whims. And there is something else in the chapter that might also give us a little bit of an idea of how long we have. But it's pretty much once Shigaraki gets going, this might be like a very painful process. And it ultimately comes down to like whether or not the author will be able to write a painful struggle between the heroes and the villains. Right now, the author's at a point where he controls the narrative in the Hero Academia world to an aggressive degree. And we've already seen how susceptible Hero Academia civilians are to violent propaganda through Stain. So right now, we're in a point where, depending on how the author handles this amount of power, we could either see a giant rush to the end where things just keep escalating till like it eventually just it's done, or we could see a very prolonged struggle where things are just painful to some degree. Like if you read the Black Clover chapter for today, that kind of pain that you see from Clear Injustice, like the author's really in a position here where he could like stab you in the gut and then really twist the knife if he does it really well. And it seems like he wants to go that route. When you have Hawks in there, it seems like he wants to go that route. Okay, so let's officially start the walkthrough. Those are my opening thoughts. I think it's a really fun chapter. So jumping into the first page. The first page sets us up that this is 1 week after the Battle of Deika City. This was funny because, commenters were telling me what they thought was going to be happening here. As we found out for this chapter, we got not a reaction chapter, we got an epilogue chapter. This is effectively an epilogue, as it's talking about what's going on with the villains, and then telling us that next chapter is going to be a new development. So that probably means next chapter is a new arc. The first page shows us the title of the chapter, Power. I do think, yes, this is without a doubt Power. Shigaraki has so much influence in his hands right now, and he's only going to collect more. But yeah, the first page is just telling us the cover story. And when I started reading it, it's like eyewitness report, and it's like, by the time you get to the end of the first page, you realize this is a story. This is how they are lying. This is how they're coming up with it. And this was very scary because this is a giant change. But when you have a whole town in on it too, like it's easy to control it. There are some convenient aspects here, but hey, the Liberation Army had this set up, so in that regard, I don't think it's a cheap kind of convenience. I think it's a well done convenience. Anyway, first page, it shows you what story that they were gonna go with, and the second page shows you to what degree they let people know the truth, while also showing us how they did it. That being Skeptic. We knew that if there was going to be a cover story, it was going to be Skeptic. It's cool to see it here. Again, in terms of making sure that these villains are using their God-given talents, this is good. This is how it should go. This is excellent. Now in the middle of the it's the third page on Jimini's box. In the middle of that page, we see that it's confirmed that the Shueisha, Curious is dead. That is unfortunate. It's unfortunate that she had to be one of the casualties in this arc. Now, the third half, the final third, not third half, sorry, it's late. The final third of the page is interesting because this is very interesting that the author put this in. He put in, there was the information of people arguing that people using quirks, or untrained citizens using quirks, aggravated the death toll, while other people were saying that it was good that the civilians acted in self-defense. Here is the beginning of the propaganda battle. Here you have one side saying it's not good to be using your quirk unrestrained, and here is the public opinion saying, oh yeah man, totally great. And here's the thing, who do we know is correct in this side as people? Well, we know that technically the correct side is maybe the people who are saying it's bad that citizens used their quirks untrained. Mind you, these citizens were technically trained by the Liberation Army, but the reality of the situation is, like, if no one was using their quirks unrestrained, this wouldn't have been a problem. We know, like, in this situation, you know, it's kind of hard to say that there is a correct side, but we know that the correct thing here is that if people just weren't fighting, if this just wasn't a conflict, the loss of life wouldn't have happened, right? That's just the reality of the situation. The important thing here, though, is that the Liberation Army has now set up public opinion to a point where people are going to be cheering on the Liberation Army. It's a pretty nasty situation, and you have to, like, keep in mind, all this passion, all this fervor, all this excitement is based on a lie. So do take that into consideration, and also consider how narrative influences people. I'm not saying that this is an effect that occurs in the real world, but I do think it's really nicely done. I think this is a really nice panel. I think this is a really good move on the author. I like that he is showing how narratives can divide, and I like that as readers we know the narrative is mostly false. So it is one of those things where, like, you know, appreciate this, because this is an effect that you can assume is happening in the world right now. People acting on false narratives. I'm not going to say in what sense, but it's worth keeping that in mind. I think that was a really good move by the author. Page 4, we go into page 4, and this is a bit of a transition page showing what the League is doing. Now from page 3 on Jemani's box, we know that they are in a mansion in the woods, but this was a nice page. I found that there was a lot of playful energy in this one. I thought it was funny how the characters were talking to themselves. You know, you had Mr. Compress, I think one of the characters that got shafted the most in this arc. And then you had Dabby, like, putting on the lampshade, you know, just saying, like, yeah, Mr. Compress didn't do anything, which I agree with. That was really funny. I like that the author was kind of, like, you know, being aware of what was happening there. He was self-aware a few other times. I'll try and point it out when I see it. But other thing in this page is that in the halfway panel, when I saw that Twice was... well, he had a little shrine dedicated to Toga, I thought, oh crap. Like, that was my first reaction. Like, oh crap, is she dead? But I thought, nah, Twice must be joking, or he must be having a breakdown. But it's like, didn't he fix his breakdown? And sure enough, you go to the final third of the page, and you see that Toga is still alive, and she looks more or less alright. She has an eye patch, so I do wonder if she's lost that eye. But she's alive, so that's all good stuff, right? And then you go into the next page, which I think is a little bit concerning. So page 5, and you have people pointing out, again, being self-aware, didn't he get over his complex? And then Spinner saying that it made his condition even worse. So I'm not sure how I feel about that, about the Twice development there. Because just a while ago, you had Twice accepting himself fully, and now you have Twice having a mental breakdown when all the fighting is over? There is entirely the possibility that this mentality will lead to some wicked wild uses of his quirk. That is very possible. But for now, I'm not sure how I feel about this one. The big thing here is that the author is being aware of this, which I think accentuates the humor. So I'm hoping that this is just going to be a one-off gag. Like, maybe sometimes Twice will be totally stable, and then sometimes he'll just break down into this disassociative state. But at the same time, it's kind of odd. There is no real need for him to be like this. But then again, he has a brain injury, you know, from the cut. So who knows, really? Anyway, the rest of the page is a bit of a gag page. So yeah, it's a bit of a gag because, like, Skeptic comes in. There's even a weird little panel which I think has sushi on it, and then it serves as a transition to the next stage here. Now, before we move into the other page, there was a panel that I don't fully understand, and I wonder what you guys think about it, where they're saying, who do you think was the one who let that Baldy stay in this cool ass hideout? And from the way that this sounds, it's like, who is the Baldy, right? Who exactly is the Baldy? And my first thing that I thought when I saw this is that it had to be the Doctor, right? Because here you have a situation where Skeptic is like complaining about all the things that he's done, and Twice is retorting with the hideout, which implies that the hideout isn't theirs. And then the Baldy, the only one I can think of, it's not Shigaraki, it's not Jiren, right? So it has to be the Doctor. And then if the Doctor is there, then, and the way that Twice is speaking, it makes it sound like he's trying to say like, oh yeah, well, we got all for one, you know, like he's just retorting. But what do you guys think about that line? I'm not too sure what's going on there, because like when you go to the rest of the chapter, it feels like this is something Detnerat owns, but Twice's line here is just weird. Now, page 6 is one of the 2 pages I think that kind of shows you how well the Liberation Army feels about the situation. You have the politician specifically saying that Reed Destro chose those people, and that is the will of Destro. So you see what's going on here, because he's also fixing his dialect. Sorry, not dialect, his dialogue. He was going to say Supreme Leader first, but then he's switching around. Actually, I just realized something in this page. This is significantly okay. This is actually a little bit more aggressive than I thought. He's still learning what's going on here, and from the way this looks on page 6, he's still in the habit of calling him Supreme Leader, but he knows he can't because he understands Destro's will. And then there's a buzz, and he's pressing a button, which it's either the button, when you look at the halfway, the second third of the page, you see that a wall is opening besides the stairs. So there's a few things occurring here. So it's either he's got a little wrist thing that is listening for whenever he is saying the Supreme Leader and buzzing him. So, you know, like corrective, like kind of how you would train a dog. Just corrective, just to remind him to not actually say, or not to call Reed Destro a Supreme Leader. And it's controlled by his watch, or it's like there is still some kind of buzzing mechanism on his body to prevent him from saying Supreme Leader. So he's taking it seriously, and then the watch controls the wall that goes into the next floor. I'm honestly not too sure what's going on here, but I think it's possible, if this is All for One's place, I think it's possible that one of the other villains probably can open up the secret passageways. Although, that's an interesting page. I'm glad I took a second to look at that for a second, because that buzz was kind of weird. Wow. Guys, let me know what you think down below. This is a little bit of a reaction, I guess, as well. One thing I will definitely say is that the second panel, or you know, the second layer panel, second level panel, is a shot of just how big this mansion is. This definitely feels like the kind of thing that All for One would have in his back pocket. Now we go into the double page for the chapter. This is page 7 on Jaimini's box. You have Reed Destro. We get to see what he looks like now. He is in a wheelchair. I would have thought he could have given himself some better prosthetics, but okay, that's cool. And then you have the shot of Shigaraki. Now, a few quick things here is that when you look into the crowd, you can see the Gigantomachia is there. And one of the things that made me feel like this could be probably the Liberation Army's base is that, well, there's just so many people in there. It's like, how did you get all those people in there, right? Like, how did that work? But then you consider that All for One also had like giant assemblies of people, so you could say like, oh yeah, All for One probably, like, this could still be All for One's place. It's just kind of, it's interesting. But yeah, when I was first reading the chapter, this is why I thought this could be Reed Destro's place, but it's probably All for One's. Anyway, the big thing that I want to get your attention on page 7 is that you have a little thought bubble of Shigaraki thinking it's all prickly. And this is in reference to his outfit. That just tells you that Shigaraki just kind of had that put on him. Like, you know, he might have picked it up and done it himself. But it's just, the prickly feeling just says that he's kind of disinterested. And it's also like kind of a new thing that he's feeling, right? It just tells you that this new outfit is new to him. I think that was a very nice way of conveying that. And in this shot, we also get to see his scary. We also get to see his damages. So we see that his arm is broken, but it seems like it's still functional. His arm that was ripped apart, we see that he has a prosthetic on it. It looks pretty cool. It doesn't damage his quirk because we know that he can propagate his quirk from his 2 remaining fingers, and we see that his leg is totally broken. So overall, it's a very informative page. Now we go into page 8, and Toga points out something that I didn't notice on the first read through, and I kind of just skipped it again. But Shigaraki still has one of the hands, and it survived the fight, so he still has that on his face. Whatever. Like, the hands represented something pre the fight, but you know, now they're just, I guess, a nice little souvenir. And I love that someone pointed out that that was super convenient. Like, again, author, you were self-aware about what was going on here. Good enough. Anyway, moving on. The last 2/3 of the page are pretty much just, well, it's propaganda. It's just propaganda. It's just Redestro getting the crowd and explaining how he's actually not betraying anything, how he's actually still being a liberator. It's quite alright. This is just a page for you as the readers to understand what exactly is going through Redestro's mind and just how hard he's jumped on to Shigaraki. He has jumped on to Shigaraki hard, and that's really shown in the next page. The next page is still propaganda, but what I really want to just point you towards is just the way that the author drew Redestro. This is just, Redestro has become a total fanatic. Like, if Shigaraki is a religion, this guy is a Knight Templar of the Shigaraki religion. This guy has gone fully off the deep end. He quite literally saw Jesus in Shigaraki. So that's something. I do like how the author conveyed that with the art for that page. Now, the last bit of information I think is really worthwhile on this page is that they were talking about that they got a new name and that it was devised by Redestro and Spinner. So an anime fan and a religious zealot got together. And, you know, at this point, I'm just like, oh man, what is this name going to be? And then we go into the next page and we find out it's the Paranormal Liberation Front, according to Jimini's box. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to wait till the Viz Media translation because I feel that there's too many words here that this could go weird with. I'm going to wait till the Viz Media translation. I'm not sure if this is going to stick, the Paranormal Liberation Front. I don't also understand why they switched from superpower to paranormal. There's probably some significance to it. They do explain a little bit, though. They abandoned the title of villains because they want to broaden the world's understanding of special abilities. That's still just showing that the Liberation Army is still partly in there. They're just showing like, yeah, hey, like, we're still very much in the we're very invested in the battle of public opinion. Now, one thing that I found very interesting in this page, aside from just the introduction of the members and the power structure, is that we got to see Apocrypha. And when I see Apocrypha here, the first thing I thought, like, is that Todoroki's mother? And I had to go back over to the wiki just to make sure. And I think I've made sure. I looked at her face. I looked at her face for a little bit. I saw her. And what I saw here is just pretty much it's not the same person. Their eyebrows are different, I think. And I think Apocrypha has bushier eyelashes. So it's not Todoroki's mother. But I just had to make sure. It was a moment of, like, you know, illogical fear. So I just had to make sure. But the fact that she was hidden away, and the fact that she has ice powers, and the fact that we know that there is a family whose hair also kind of gives you a hint to what power they have, I would not be surprised if this person is not somehow related to Todoroki. And then this makes the Dobby and this girl fight a little bit more significant. Because if Dobby's related to Todoroki, you pretty much have a situation where it looks like these two are being telegraphed into fighting Todoroki. Think about it. You have like the fire guy and the ice girl, who interestingly enough seems to have the same color scheme as Rei. So I'm not sure I'm not sure what the author wants to do there, but the fact that he hid the girl's hair color tells me that he wanted that he wanted that to be significant. It tells me that if Todoroki is going to be fighting villains anytime soon, he's probably going to have to deal with 2 of them attacking him. Now the next thing is that Apocrypha isn't looking too happy about this, so who knows if things could flip in the future in this situation. It's just kind of odd. Anyway, the next page is page 11, and we get to see that Hawks is there. And this is where we finish up the loose plot thread that was introduced halfway through the arc earlier. We have Hawks watching the situation, and we have the reveal, or the startup, or the segue into the reveal of what is inside the bag. And then we go into page 12, and we see that, okay, there is someone that looks like Best Jeanist in the bag. Now, I don't fully recall what I said for that chapter, but I assume if it was me, I probably said I didn't believe it. I still, in that case, I still don't believe it. If that was what I said, I still don't believe it all that well. It's a world of quirks. We were introduced to people that can quite literally duplicate people. I feel like there's a lot of ways where this could be played with. Although I am also still a fan of the idea that Hawks becomes a monster and Tokoyami calls him out on it. So either way that this goes, I'd be quite alright with it. Although in terms of something that would make Tokoyami worthwhile, in terms of a character struggle for him to do, I think it makes more sense for Hawks to actually have killed this guy. Because then you get... Then Tokoyami gets more of a righteous kind of... He gets a righteous reason to actually call out Hawks on the things that he's done. And then you can play around with some of the metaphors. Anyway, this is the page where we pretty much see... Or we pretty much return to where we started with the chapter. My god, this video is really long. I hope you guys enjoy long videos. We get to the whole part of just Hawks pretty much making it simple for readers to see just how much things he's gathered up, you know. And just to reiterate, you have an army united under a single cause. That's dangerous. You have a guy that can control apparently the world's networks. That's dangerous. You have a guy with deep connections in the industry and also a mad genius, honestly. And then you have the high-end Nomus. Yeah, like... Hawks lays it out for us. This is dangerous. This is an insanely terrifying situation. Now we go into page 13, and page 13 is just one that kind of it's the second of the 2 pages that just shows you how bad of a situation this is for the Liberation Army, like how far people have fallen here. You have Redestro like just showing how much of a fanboy he's become. Like again, this guy's serving Jesus. That's pretty much what it is. And then you have the little thought bubble pointing you to the direction that Trumpet doesn't, you know, he's not totally happy with this. Like the reason he's following is because of ideology. Now when I read that line, it's like, it means that the executives to some degree are unwilling participants in this. And the question there is really, you know, is that unwillingness enough? Can that grow into a source of betrayal? Can we actually see the group splintering off? If they splinter off, that makes things easier for us. But I wonder if it's actually going to happen. One last thing I will say was kind of funny in that page is that if you look at Redestro, when he's like shaking his hands together, the author drew a little smoke coming out of it just to like convey how fast he's going. Anyway, that's what that page conveys. It just gives you an idea of like how this is going. One thing you should take away from that is that Redestro himself is not in any way traitorous towards Shigaraki. The problem are the people that care about Redestro, but the people that care about Redestro are locked in by the ideology. The bottom half of the page is just Shigaraki showing that he is in fact quite damaged, and he goes into the conversation with his with the professor, or the doctor, the bald guy. Now the most interesting thing in that final little bit there is that we got Dr. Yujiko. Like, I'm pretty sure we have that name before, but we also had the doctor saying that his quirk returned. So that again is just furthering the idea that Shigaraki had the quirk the whole time. He just wasn't using it to the full potential. Anyway, we go into one of the more critical pages, and I think it's the final page for the chapter. And it's specifically that the doctor can grant Shigaraki power. Now, the real question is, what kind of power is it going to be? Is it going to be more quirks, or is it going to be Nomus? Or is it going to be biological mutations or something along that line? What is it going to be? That is the big question. Now, though, that we're seeing Shigaraki damage, I do want to talk about that, in that I think whatever lighthearted adventures Hero Academia can still embark on, you know, like things like the class battle, the lightheartedness will ultimately be limited by when Shigaraki decides that he wants to make a move. Shigaraki right now controls the pacing of Hero Academia. If Shigaraki doesn't make a move, the heroes can't afford to be happy-go-lucky. Once Shigaraki makes a move, we need to see how the narrative is going to work. Right now, Shigaraki holds a lot of narrative power. From my perspective, it makes sense that Shigaraki is going to need to take a little bit of time to recover. He's going to need to take a little bit of time to maybe adapt to this new power. I think we could end up not as aggressive, but like in a situation like in Naruto, where Orochimaru had a time limit, or he had an amount of time. The reason that the time skip in Naruto could happen in the first place was because Orochimaru's jutsu specifically had a time span that had to pass. We could be going into a similar situation with Shigaraki, although I wouldn't assume it'd be as aggressive as 3 years. I would assume it would be something like a few months. Like Shigaraki has to recuperate for a few months before he can really get going, and that's pretty much going to be the time that Shigaraki allows Hero Academia to be lighthearted. Man, this has been a long video. Now the final half of the page is the spot that gives hope, and it's also kinda the weird spot. So we'll kinda walk through it. First off, we have the message that the doctor wants something delivered. Who is stuff being delivered to? You know, big people, All Might, Tartarus. You know, what does he want delivered? That's a pretty nice hook to leave the chapter on. That panel though, where you see that, you also see Hawk's feather flying. So is that feather scouting out the area? It looks like a feather, right? That's the only thing I can imagine. And then you have the segue with Hawks saying that he wants to meet the rest of the gang. We know we're furthering that plot line. And then you have the final little bit here where Hawks is pretty much putting it all on the table. He thinks there's a way to possibly deal with this. We know that he wants to figure out what's going on and then probably escape and then get back to Endeavor to tell him. So this is a good setup for a way to probably like lessen the impact of the situation. And with him saying that with the slightest delay it could be all over for Japan, that makes me feel good, because it kind of makes me feel like, okay, we could be doing this quickly. This final half of the page is probably going to be super impactful for the future, because right here we have Hawks investigating, we have the doctor saying that he wants something delivered, and depending on what it is, it could either be a giant blow to the society or it could be a giant blow to All Might. And then you have just a general time limit being set up here. It's going to be very interesting what occurs going forward into the future. But guys, let me know if I missed anything. This was a very long chapter. We had a lot to talk about. I got 38 minutes recorded. My goodness, holy crap moly. Let's hope I can shorten that a little bit. But anyway, yes, guys and gals, thanks so much for watching. Let me know if I missed anything down below. This was a very fun chapter, and when it's really late at night, I get much more talkative. So let me know what you thought down below, and let's leave it there. Till next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day or night. I'm tired.